How would they die, do you think?
From the poison?
Yes.
I don't know.
Does it take a long time?
I suppose it depends on how much you give them.
That's right. Is it painful?
I really don't want to think about it.
No, of course not. We don't want our conscience to get the best of us, do we? It's something that has to be done. And when something has to be done, you do it.
Is your coffee too hot?
I saw him.
And we are back. But before we go into real talk, it's time for PP, our patron pitch. This is the part of the show where we let our patrons know what they can expect on their exclusive patron feed, and we let non-patrons know what they're missing out on. So we're starting a new year of Contrarian's goodness, a new year of Contrarian's patron goodness as well. We have new collections for you patrons to look at. If you log on the app or the website, you'll see that we, as mentioned a few episodes ago, finally went ahead and collected all the bonus episodes we have there by year. So you have Contrarian's Patron year 1, year 2, and year 3 for your perusal without having to do searches. It's just like all nicely organized. That's available to everybody. Starting on the ground floor, the $1 tier, the Travoltis. You get access to all those bonus episodes. This month's bonus episode, the newest addition to that list, is going to be the movie Nosferatu. Alex, is it the original vampire movie? Yeah, I know it's one of the earliest ones, but I don't want to commit to call
from 1922. So I mean, it's a safe bet that there weren't too many beforehand. But yeah, that's certainly a genre where I could say that, and someone like, well, actually, and.
Well, vampires, black and white. This is coming to us courtesy of patron Jordan Mance, who also gave us the Planet of the Apes QVR last month. And this one is also a movie that's on his top 100 of all time. So
it's also one of those movies that's in public domain, so the entire movie is on its Wikipedia page.
Oh, man. That's great. All of you have no excuse not to watch Nosferatu before our bonus episode. Also, on the Travoltis tier, you have access to all the stuff that doesn't make it to our episodes on the cutting room floor segments. So if you're curious about what spicy conversation didn't make it to the original Sin final cut, well, that's going to be on the Patreon channel. Now, if you want more content, then you move up a tier. The Winonis, the $3 tier and upwards, you get access to our pre-recorded notes. You get access to our quick video reviews. This month, we're doing another dual quick video review, Alex. We have a couple of those left over from the patron takeover. And this is from patron Sachin, who wants us to revisit A Good Day to Die Hard. It's been years since we covered it on the show.
Shameful.
Sachin gave us 4 brothers, so we really can't be too upset.
That's fair.
That was a good episode. That was a fun movie to watch. And now, who knows, Alex? Maybe we're different people now. It was pre-COVID when we watched A Good Day to Die Hard for the show a long time ago. So maybe now we'll find it as a delightful romp.
It'll definitely pivot to me talking about how funny Jai Courtney is and Wet Hot American Summer. So we'll be all right.
All right, so that's a quick video review. And then, of course, you also have access to Contrarians After Hours. That's the spin-off show where we tell you about other things that we are watching, that we're reading, that we're listening to, that we're thinking about. So, Alex, we have a very special After Hours this time.
Yes, we do. We're making the rare jaunt to the theater together.
It's cinema, baby. Marty Scorsese has a movie on the big screen, as he usually does.
And not to be watched on our telephones. But yeah, Killers of Flower Moon, which is based on a book by the same title. Does Marty still have the fastball? Is he still able to step up to bat when it calls for it?
Is he going to rival Nolan's, the Nolan experience that we had very recently with Oppenheimer, our most recent event movie that we went to see together? All these questions will be answered on the after hours.
All these and more.
All these and more. And then, if you're wondering, how do you become one of those patrons that tells us what to watch? Well, that's what the $5 tier and the $10 tiers are for. So just go to our Patreon page, patreon.com/Contrarian Prime, look at the tiers, and see if you would like to join the Contrarian supplements.
Yes, $1, $3, $5, and $10, as Julio just outlined. $1 gets you in on the ground floor. We have our previous projects over there, such as our Rock Cena mega series we did, detailing not only their record-breaking rivalry in the professional wrestling world, but also detailing the film careers of both men. It's a doozy. I think we clocked in about 12 hours in total on that series, and you're not going to find any coverage anywhere else on the internet more thorough and researched than our mini-series on The Rock versus John Cena, and also our 4-part series from earlier this year on the life and times and career of Miss Lindsay Lohan. We got some good feedback on that, and that was a lot of fun to do. And I know I had been teasing recently some news about some potential upcoming projects, so we'll go ahead and discuss that now. We have 3 potential projects on the back burners, irons in the fire. So, I wouldn't call these tiers. How would we say this?
Goals?
Goals. There you go. Good one. So we have 3 potential projects set at goals in terms of when we hit a certain number of patrons. So honestly, by the time this is published, we could possibly be at the first goal, which is to hit the number 30 for patrons, because we're right on the edge there. Once we hit 30 patrons, Julio and I will begin a series which I have dubbed From Silk Sheets to the Silver Screen. We will be looking at, in a 6-part series, the attempts of pornographic actors to transition into mainstream film. We'll be doing this through the David Cronenberg film from 1977, Rabid, the 1986 John Frankenheimer film, 52 Pickup. There's a 1999 French art house film written and directed by Catherine Brillat titled Romance. Obviously, one of the most widely available and known examples would be The Girlfriend Experience, the Steven Soderbergh film from 2009. And we will be moving from there, Julio. It's come to pass. Inherent Vice will make its way to Contrarian's canon.
Oh, God. I was very excited about this until we hit this part.
And then we will be closing with The Other Side of the Wind, the Orson Welles film that was thought to be lost, incomplete, what have you, and that actually was found, resurfaced, and released on Netflix in the year 2018. Now, Julio, one thing I'm not going to do, with the exception of The Girlfriend Experience, because everyone knows that Sasha Grey is the star of that film, I'm not going to tell you the connection or who the actor or actress is in these movies that we cover. That'll be part of it, is up to you to figure it out, or for you to guess, rather. And same thing for our audience there. If anyone's going to be watching along with us, to not give away right away who the topic of discussion will be. Now, those are the 6 movies that would go to Patreon. The bonus that would come to the main feed with this project would be the 1987 Arnold Schwarzenegger film, The Running Man. So
I think it's fair to let everybody know that I knew about the concept. I did not know the lineup. So I'm just
Aren't you fired up now?
These are like really big names. Like I think, no, you told me about the Orson Welles movie, because I've actually seen that, and you always bring up The Girlfriend Experience, so that doesn't surprise me. But man, we got PTA, we got
John Frankenheimer, David Cronenberg.
Yeah, Cronenberg. I mean, we've had him before, and that's great. And then I guess some artsy French director. This is a big deal. Who directed The Running Man?
The Running Man was Paul Michael Glaser.
Okay.
Written by Steven DeSouza.
Well, there you go. That's like an all-star endeavor here. And as of this recording, we are 4 patrons away. So
yeah,
let's get it done.
So we will undertake that project at 30 patrons. At 40, Julio and I will sit down and record commentary tracks for each one of the Friday the 13th films. Just my way of finally getting Julio to sit down and watch Friday the 13th Part 3 and to learn along with all of us about Shelley and how he deserved to die for being just so annoying. And then at 50 patrons, I know that's a lofty goal, but we're making it worth the while because it would be a year-long project. We will cover every one of the Saturday Night Live-based feature films. So that would be The Blues Brothers, Wayne's World, Coneheads, Wayne's World 2, It's Pat, Stuart Saves His Family, Blues Brothers 2000, A Night at the Roxbury, Superstar, The Ladies' Man, and MacGruber. Now, I don't know if you were keeping track on your hands there, Julio. That does add up to 11 films. Now, because let's just go, we can make this a whole year-long project, we got to throw another one in there. And if we got to throw one in, I'm going to the tried and true combo of Chris Farley and David Spade, and we will be adding Tommy Boy to that lineup. Again, this would be similar to our Lohan or Roxina series in terms of deep dives and discussing Saturday Night Live. It would go beyond just the bounds of reviewing the movie. So that's why we've kind of set that at the highest tier for right now.
I like the way that our patron has been growing. It's like slow but steady. So I can see how this will pace itself well. So obviously, if you're already a patron, you already did your part. All you have to do is stay subscribed. If you're not a patron, this should be the thing that maybe pushes you to being a patron. Just any tier will do. We're just counting the number, not the amount of money. And we promise you, it's worth it. If you don't believe us, ask our newest patron, Paul Prisula, our friend from the Countdown podcast. He finally took the plunge, joined the Contrarian Supplements. Be like him. Follow Paul into the madness that is our Patreon channel.
And then as we close out here, I do want to make it clear, these projects, we'll be making reference to them on our social media, but I don't want anyone to worry about this is something we're going to talk about every time we do our patron pitch. Just wanted to go ahead and explain what we're looking at here. And like I said, we'll post some regular reminders, but the word's out, so spread it.
Now, Alex, let's go back in time again to the early 1900s to talk about love and lust.
Let's do.
Shall we just, play the game or just speak the truth?
Well, the truth is best.
All right.
All right, Julio. It's time to talk about how we really feel about Original Sin, the Original Sin. I'm mad it didn't have a "the" in the title.
They talked to Sean Parker.
Yeah, he cleaned it up for him. Oh, boy. Just to reiterate our bullet points, July 11th, 2001, France release. August 3rd, 2001, United States release. 12% on Rotten Tomatoes. Estimated budget between 26 and 42 million. Box office return of less than 36. I guess let's just start with who liked it.
Roger Ebert, but we'll save that one for last.
Thank you.
All right, so we got 3 other quotes besides Ebert's. We're going to start with Michael W. Phillips Jr. from Go Dogs Movies, who says, "I was pleasantly surprised by how enjoyable this movie was." So he went in expecting it not to be enjoyable. He went in to hate watch it.
It's always a weird one.
Based on the poster, I guess I haven't seen the trailer. Have you seen the trailer?
No. I guess I hadn't before I fired up the DVD, but it was one of those erotic thrillers. We spent a whole season doing those, so.
Why would you be pleasantly surprised that it was enjoyable to see Angelina Jolie and Antonio Banderas all over each other?
I mean, that's all you could really ask for.
Yeah, it was like, as what did they say? When it's like when something is exactly as advertised, as seen on TV. I ordered your product and it was exactly what I wanted. All right, Edward Johnson Ott from Nouveau News Weekly says the movie is entertainingly bad. So this guy is on the so bad it's good camp.
I was too until a certain point.
It's probably the same point for me. Jim Lane from Sacramento News and Review says Thomas Jane adds a layer of ambiguous spice.
What would be an ambiguous spice?
Like his sexuality? Is that what he's talking about?
Oh, no, I meant like actually on the spice shelf. Like what's something that doesn't overpower something?
Oh.
Maybe if you just use like a pinch of paprika, not a whole lot of it, that would be a ambiguous spice.
Chili powder. Like Jesse Pinkman.
Yeah. It's a calling card.
Yep. All right. And then we get to the big one. The big boy. Roger Ebert, Chicago Sun-Times. It's an exuberant example of what it is. A bodice-ripping murder meller. And at that, it gets a passing grade. What the hell is a meller, Roger Ebert? M-E-L-L-E-R.
Well, let's see. Melodrama.
Oh, now I feel dumb.
I've never heard that term used for it either. So, because they even use the term melodrama in the movie. Could have just gone for it. And I'm going to raise the stakes. I'm just going to take you up one more. And we're going to go to Ebert's full review from August 3rd of 2001. 3-star review. The first shot on the screen is a close-up of Angelina Jolie's lips, and what lips they are, plump and pouting and almost bruised. Eventually, we tear ourselves away from the sight and realize she's talking. She's telling the story of why she happens to be in a jail cell. These flashbacks will eventually reveal that she has been condemned to death by garroting, a nasty way to go, as the executioner turns a screw to tighten an iron collar around your neck. This prologue undermines any romantic illusions as the story itself begins circa 1900, introducing us to a wealthy Cuban coffee planter named Luis Durand. This is, of course, Antonio Banderas, who anticipates the arrival of a mail-order bride named Julia Russell. Handsome and rich, he has never married, in parentheses. Love is not for me. Love is for those people who believe in it. His expectations for the bride are realistic. She's not meant to be beautiful. She's meant to be kind, true, and young enough to bear children. You don't recognize me, do you? Julia murmurs in the thrilling low register as she finds her standing before him at the dock. He does not. This sultry vision is not the plain woman in the photograph he holds. She confesses she sent the wrong photos because she did not want a man who was attracted only to her beauty. He confesses, too. He owns his plantation, is not simply a worker there. He didn't want to attract a gold digger. Then we have something in common, she says. Neither one of us can be trusted. Actually, he can. Original Sin is based on the novel Waltz into Darkness by the famous noir writer Cornell Woolrich. Another one of his books inspired Hitchcock's Rear Window, and indeed this one was earlier filmed as Mississippi Mermaid by Francois Truffaut in 1969. Like many good thrillers, it really gets rolling after we think we've already seen through the plot. There are surprises on top of surprises, and I will tread carefully to preserve them. The purpose of the movie is not really to tell its story anyway, but to use it as an engine to pull Banderas and Angelina Jolie through scenes of lurid melodrama, dramatic ultimatums, and stunning revelations. Another purpose is to show off how these two splendid human beings, and I am happy to report that there is even a certain amount of nudity, which you would expect with this passionate story, but then again, you never know. Now that studios are scurrying into the shelter of the PG-13 to hide from pruny congressmen. Get him, Raj.
This is the man who liked Crash.
Jolie continues to stalk through the picture entirely on her own terms. Her presence is like a Daria for a man. There's a dialogue in this movie so overwrought it's almost literally unspeakable, and she survives it by biting it off contemptuously and spitting it out. She makes no effort to pretend to be a nice woman, not even at first when Louis believes her story. She's the kind of woman who looks at a man in the eye and tells him what she wants and how soon she expects to get it. Banderas skillfully plays up to this quality, spaniel-eyed, love-struck, so overwhelmed he will follow her literally anywhere. This movie is not intended to be subtle. It is sweaty, candlelit, melodrama, joyously trashy, and its photography wallows in sumptuous decadence. The ending is hilariously contrived and sensationally unlikely, as the movie audaciously shows an unrevocable action and then revokes it. I don't know whether to recommend Original Sin or not. It's an exuberant example of what it is. A bodice-ripping murder meller, and at that, it gets a passing grade. Maybe if it had tried to be more, it would have simply been watering the soup. So,
Son of a bitch. He convinced me. 5 stars.
That's a classic Ebert review. I mean, 3 stars, so that's high on his list. But he does a really good job of explaining like what we do when we come across a movie that's not good, but it's like, this is why I like it. So I thought it was a really good review.
Yeah, I like it too. I think that he, I think I mentioned before, sometimes you could see why when a movie would get on his good side over something specific. And I used to, for example, think that if a movie was visually impressive, he was more likely to be forgiving of its flaws if he was just like blown away by what they were doing visually. I think I remember, not that Pixar movies needed the slack, but like something like Pixar would just blow his mind. Like he would be very complimentary of that over other aspects of the movie and so on. And sometimes I would feel like, okay, Ebert, calm down. But what about the story, right?
Yeah.
And I think that we may have stumbled upon another thing that really tickles his fancy, and that is just, I guess, bold depictions of sexual acts. Or just nudity. And I get where he's coming from, right? And especially now that his review, his take on Crash is part of our mythology. This show's mythology now because, the whole Hui thing.
Yeah.
And he appreciates that, right? He appreciates movies that treat sexuality as not as something that you need to be ashamed of, or something that maybe we should kind of like look the other way. He's like, no, sex happens and we should show it, and if we're gonna show it, we should show it without like being silly or prudish about it. And so I guess when keeping that in mind, it doesn't surprise me that Original Sin started with a good foot for him, right? He's like, oh yeah, 2 really hot people get married. Of course they're going to have wild sex. I'm glad that they're showing it to us. Yeah. And from then on, he's more likely to forgive everything else that happens after.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Disgusting. Cheap melodrama.
I had a different experience though, and I don't know if it's because it's been built up in my head for so long. I was kind of underwhelmed by the by the sex scenes here. The one sex scene, because really there's nothing else, everything else is implied, or you just kind of like see the aftermath or the beginning. But there's just that one big sex scene that's not even a centerpiece, it happens early on. Mm-hmm. And I was like, they're obviously great looking and it's well shot, but it might be that in the 20 years since, when a movie's wanted to be explicitly about sex, it's gone so much further than that. This is just like, oh, well, it's there, but I don't know. How did you feel, Alex? Because if it was built up for me, in your head, it must have been even worse because you actually had seen that scene. And so you've had even more time to develop a connection to it that could have been, it could be even more of a backlash to see it in the context of the movie.
Yep. I didn't have any sentimental, well, I guess from the perspective of like just beaten off like I was getting paid to do it when I was younger, but I would be curious to compare the two because I was watching it today and I was like, good Lord, like
really?
Well, I think the version I watched is significantly like the scene's longer than what you watched. And
yeah, that's probably the case. But even, okay, so I'll tell you what I saw. I saw like...
Sorry, Lars von Trier didn't direct this, Julio.
Even, we did... Well, no, I don't want to keep going back to Crash, because especially that's like a
blue is the warmest color.
That's actually a really good comparison because that's a movie where also the sexual component of the relationship is very important for the way that the story plays out. And this is the same, right? I think that the purpose behind that first sex scene between them is to establish, to really, without a shadow of a doubt, that this man, that's the moment where he just lost his mind, right? You have to give me a sex scene that is so mind-blowing that I'm going to buy that. Like, I never questioned why he's doing what he's doing. I was like, oh yeah, did you see that sex scene? That's why, and it works in the sense that, well, Angelina Jolie is super hot and she's very charismatic. And so I could even buy it without the sex scene, but the fun of the movie should be that I can always go back to that sex scene and pinpoint, oh yeah, that is where it happened. That was from here on, it's just a snowball that's just rolling downhill. And I didn't feel that. I mean, it just felt like it was kind of tame. Like I don't want to sound crass but it's like he's on top of her most of it. You know what I mean? Like, that is kind of really missionary. That's what we're going with. Like for the sex scene that's supposed to change his world. Like,
that's fair. And, I jested a lot about it leading into this with my adolescent attachment to Angelina Jolie, but it's kind of like anything, it's been topped at this point, but it's still, from the version I watched, I was still kind of taken aback by its intensity. Director Michael Christopher said in interviews and in his commentary for the movie that before the sex scene between Lewis and Julie was filmed, Angelina Jolie told him that she would only film the scene if she was fully naked without any tape or anything covering her up. Antonio Banderas also decided to do the scene fully naked after talking with them, and only Christopher and a couple of the crew members were involved in the filming. This meant that a lot of footage filmed for the scene, however, could not be used in the film because it was too graphic and explicit to show on screen. Christopher said he was unable to even include it in the NC-17 unrated version, which is why in all versions of the film, the sex scene has very obvious cuts, which are covered with editing and fade-outs in between the shots. This was also where the rumor started about how Jolie and Banderas had unsimulated sex, which was said to have been another reason for why the scene was cut down. Christopher said that he still had copy of the original cut of the film, which, amongst other deleted scenes, also included the original uncut sex scene. So, Michael Christopher, it just...
a rainy day.
A rainy day, you light a candle, you fire up the 35 millimeter and watch the original cut of Original Sin. That is one of those things that's like so fucking stupid, though. We've talked about that before, of like, if you have a movie and a guy has like a prosthetic penis and, does something with it, that's fine. But if it's the real deal, then it's pornography. And I understand you could like somehow define that, but you know how silly that sounds on paper, you know what I mean?
I just find it hilarious that Angelina Jolie goes, oh, okay, look, I'm only doing it if I'm naked. And then Banderas is like, can I be naked too?
As if anyone was going to be like, no. I always think of it.
That is insane.
I know. It's tremendous. I did find an interview with Antonio Banderas talking about it, which kind of dispels some of the eroticism I just built up there. It's not just being afraid of our bodies, I guess. The love scene, because there was only one love scene in the movie, was shot over a couple hours, no more than that. I figured we did no more than 3 takes. That's what he told cinema.com on the press circuit for this, because as I found in my research, that was, of course, all people wanted to talk about at press junkets and any media opportunity they got. We didn't want to have to do that kind of love scene in which it doesn't show anything but looks very stylish. Then he did an interview with Daily Mail in 2007 where he came forward that it wasn't as awesome as it may have seemed on, just from what we've talked about so far. Doing a sex scene with Angelina Jolie was the same as doing a scene where I have to fall off a horse, he said. You have to make it look real, but it isn't. We had to do a very intense sex scene in Original Sin, but of course it's nothing like the way it looks on screen. I couldn't touch her because she had tattoos everywhere and they had covered it up with makeup, so I had to not touch it to dislodge it. He continued, and when there are 150 guys around you and every 20 seconds they shout cut and then mess your hair up and position your arms, it's just not that sexy.
Cry me a fucking river. I am so sorry that your job includes being naked.
With Angelina Jolie. Yes, with Angelina fucking Jolie. That's I did think that was just funny because I can just see him, 2007, so he's not modern Antonio with the gray beard, but he's still, had the slicked back hair. It's a tough job, but somebody's got to do it, that type of thing.
But 3 takes only. Like after 3 takes, he was flaccid. Couldn't do it anymore.
And then on her side of it, because it sounds like a lot of what she was met with was the rumors of them like having an affair or some shit. Because obviously she was heaven for tabloids, is, you know, the Brad Pitt thing that would come in the following years. There was an interview she did with ABC News August 2nd, 2001, so right in the lead up to its release, where it came up of like, hey, you know, what's the deal? You guys really going at it? She said, you're talking about a man who is deeply in love with his wife and married. He has beautiful children with her, and they're such a great family. And I am madly in love with my husband. We have such a great relationship, and the idea that either one of us would want anything more than our marriages is really insulting and angering. You can hear in that deep Angelina Jolie voice.
Mm-hmm. That's cool that she was able to like speak, like say her piece there, but it's also kind of like, you know, it's the kind of thing I understand why she has to answer it, but it's like they don't even deserve to, like those questions don't deserve to be dignified with answers. I mean, like,
absolutely.
Can we talk about the movie, or can you fuck off?
No shit. Can we talk about the coffee scene? Because that's really good. And just to close it here on the infamous or famous sex scene, depending on your point of view, she credits their love scenes for stirring up gossip in the first place. She said, you know, they'd pick up on that and a lot of other things they can't talk about because it's a thriller and there are secrets. And so you can't talk about the other things. And so the obvious aspects of it is that it's a very passionate film. I didn't want to do a sexy movie. That wasn't what I was out to do. I wanted to film about characters and explore why different things come out in different ways in our life. So she took the interview, took control back over it.
I am only curious to know what exactly is your business at my wife's door.
Your wife?
I mean, I don't know. See, I don't remember enough or anything really about when this movie came out. So in my mind, and this can be completely inaccurate, in my mind, it was marketed around the
poster
sex.
is them naked, like holding each other.
Okay, so I didn't make it up. I mean, I get what she's saying. Obviously, that the marketing, the promotional materials, all that stuff was not made by the time that she signed up to make the movie or when she was making the movie. And so I can see how actors can sign up for something like this and then think, yeah, well, we're doing a thriller that happens to have a sex scene at the beginning. And then they're in the structure of the movie, they know that sex scene is important. So they shoot it, you know, in a very powerful way, or at least they try to. And then the studio just markets it around that and not anything else that happens. I get the point of, well, it's kind of a mystery, so you don't want to give away a lot. But I mean, I think you can sell me this movie without really focusing on the sex.
Yeah.
Right? Like just the fact that you have Antonio Banderas and Jolie and to a lesser extent Thomas Jane. I mean, I don't think he's that big of a star, you know, compared to them. But still, like that should be like them in a love triangle. And things are not what they seem. That's all you have to do, like 30 seconds. I'm in, you know, or as in as I could be.
Not as in as Antonio Banderas.
No.
But yeah, the marketing material, like the poster and everything, is just so evocative of fucking Last Tango in Paris and those, you know, the French art house movies that kind of dominated the 90s that were all about, you know, sex, unsimulated sex, or, you know, sex drives the whole narrative of it. And I mean, this movie is also, the Lewis character is just driven by how his lust powers him. And I know they keep saying like in love, but the way that what the movie shows is that it's just all about how hot Angelina Jolie is and just how I use the thing Siren on the Water. That's literally what she is in Beowulf. She's the which there's, again, I've talked enough about how beautiful she is and just her very unique look, but that is perfect casting. Someone like that who can drive you crazy in that way. So that part of it works, but then there's the sexual aspect of it with the Bobby character that's so problematic and so gross that anything that conjures up sexiness from the Antonio Banderas side of the equation is not only canceled out, but completely just eviscerated by the whole Thomas Jane storyline. So we've had a lot of fun so far with this, and I think there is some that had to be discussed. The sex scene in this is famous/infamous, and there is a story to it. So we covered that. So now, having fun with that, we do get to the actual movie. Julio, this is not what I would call a good movie.
Agreed. My last note is this movie sucks.
My last note is LOL, fuck off.
When did it lose you? You said you were having fun and then it lost you. And
yes.
Was this after the poker game where
I was already out by that point?
Oh, wow. Okay. I mean, I'm not going to say that was like all the way in, but that's a moment where I just I said in Contreras Corner, that's a moment where I turn on the movie. I was like, okay, you crossed the line. We were having fun with the ridiculous schemes and double crosses and all this stuff, and now you just and I think we've talked about it at some point. Oh well, there's fucking showgirls, right? That movie
literally took the words out of my mouth. For all the hypersexualization we've talked about, we haven't talked about Showgirls yet.
Yeah. Showgirls is a movie that goes further, I think, with the pushing the sexual envelope. It doesn't matter because it doesn't work. And then, but to the specific comparison to Original Sin, like that movie, it is what it is, and then it becomes something much uglier towards the end when there's one of the characters is sexually assaulted and it's brutal and you see it, and then it goes back to trying to be this campy, dumb story, and it just doesn't work. And here it was like it's a lot less graphic, but it's still just horrible. And even worse, I think, just as bad maybe, the idea that Angelina Jolie is basically raped by these four guys, and she there is no real consequences of that. You know what I mean? Like her character doesn't change. It's not like
Showgirls is the right example of just what a fucking lazy trope. And an offensive one, because again, not as bad as Showgirls, because here it's all implied. It's not graphically laid out in detail, but it's for this movie, you're going to take and introduce a trope like that has caused actual pain for untold amounts of people. And you kind of were having a little bit of fun up until that point. It did offend me. And, I usually don't get offended with movies. And, you and I have pretty thick skin when it comes to this stuff. But I was just like, fuck off.
Yeah, it is like I said, the 1-2 punch of, because not that I'm going to praise Showgirls in any case, but at least in Showgirls, there's a follow up to what happens. It's like, because that happens, then there's the next scenes that take place have Elizabeth Berkley acting on that information and going for revenge and all that stuff. Here, that doesn't even you could remove that scene from the movie and you wouldn't know that Angelina Jolie has gone through this really traumatic experience. She's just the exact same character that she was before it happened, and it's just so bizarre. I don't understand why it is in the movie. I don't understand why they felt the need to put it there. Like in Contreras Corner, I made the point that I think is what they're trying to make, which is that we need to see how ugly her world is so that she can decide that, okay, there's no way that we can make it work. I'm just going to get him hurt. Well, You can make that point without her being raped. They just beat him up and that's it. And you're right. It is a movie where we're supposed to be having fun. It's like, if you're asking me to take this movie seriously, then it doesn't work at all. Like for this movie to work, I have to just be having fun and laughing at the ridiculousness of everything that's happening. And I can't do that the moment that you have these four dudes decide they're going to take out their debts on Angelina Jolie and close the door. And it's just it's horrifying. So it's just so tone deaf. It doesn't work at all. At that moment, I was like, I don't care what happens next. Like this movie can't recover from that. But you were lost already. Like when did it lose you?
It didn't recover. The scene where the jump scare where he is in her room and pulls the gun out. The acting in that scene is so bad that I was trying to figure out what could have gone wrong. And, we've talked about plenty of shit like that before, be it Man of Steel makes Amy Adams seem like a bad actress. I went off on Dark Phoenix makes Jessica Chastain seem like she doesn't know what the fuck she's doing. And in this, all jokes aside and like opinions aside on this movie, Angelina Jolie, Antonio Banderas, elite level actors. And that scene is so weird because they're like yelling at each other and she's like kind of crying. And then he really hits her. And there are movies where a level of intensity like that can take something from one level to the next. For the sake of exhausting the blue is the warmest color card, I'll go to the Master has, I mean, Joaquin hits himself, and so it's not technically the same thing, but Walk the Line also when he fucking bangs his head off the wall. Channing Tatum in Foxcatcher when he drives his head through the mirror and almost fucking hit a stud, would have probably broken his neck.
Thunder Road.
Yes, that's a good example too. I'm curious. I can't remember if he actually like belted her or not, but this is clearly he hits her like 4 times, and this ain't the movie that is necessary to have Michael Christopher tell Antonio Banderas, I really need you to slap the shit out of her. And I don't know if that's me just getting older. If it's me watching so many movies and understanding like when something's necessary and when something's not, because nothing that happens in this is going to take it to like best picture category. So
Liar! See?
Yes! Yes!
Don't you see?
Yes!
Don't you see? Don't you see I cannot breathe without you?
the first hour, I was in that mindset that you and I get sometimes doing these all too often. We're like, what are people talking about? This isn't that bad.
Yep.
And then something will happen and, kind of completely, And the first hour of it, it's just it's late and you can't sleep and it's what's on TV. You're watching it and, maybe you'll see some boobs and there's some kind of funny back and forth dialogue because it's written so poorly that it comes off as just silly. And then it just all derailed. And then on top of that, so it wasn't even a 1-2. It was a fucking jab straight left hook to the liver because it went the scene of bad acting and hitting, the dick comedy, which that's not anywhere else to be found in this movie. Its fourth cousin isn't anywhere else to be found in this movie. And then the scene of assault, I was just like, all right, fuck this. And then, yeah, like kind of in line with the hitting, when Thomas Jane spits in her mouth, I'm like, brother, this is just not necessary, man.
I think that there's a version of this movie that goes all in on the sexual aspect of it. And then I can see how the Thomas Jane character he needs to be that nasty or that transgressive, I guess.
So to me, the interesting version of this is that the second hour is him trying to find her. And you can have Walter there with him, Billy or whatever, Thomas Jane. And then that reveal and twist all happens in the last 10 minutes of the movie. That happening so soon, it's like, okay. And then the first hour builds up. Who is this woman? She came in, she got all his money and got away. And then he finds her like 5 minutes later. It's like, oh.
And he falls for her again.
Yeah. It's.
I mean, I get it, and I can even get a little bit the we were saying that Angelina Jolie goes from being this expert con woman to becoming just this helpless victim, right? And but I get it a little bit like the way that I put it in Controller's Corner. If the movie's trying to tell us that everybody is vulnerable to falling for the wrong person, then okay, we spend the first hour with Banderas being that idiot that just can't look past his lust, and it's just like whatever it takes. I need this woman, and I ignore everything, all the red flags. And then the second hour is like the big switcheroo where like this woman that has been taking advantage of him. Well, it turns out that she's also vulnerable to being taken advantage of by somebody else. I think that you can do something with that setup. It's just that this movie doesn't develop it in any way that's satisfying because the Thomas Jane character is just so gross and so just hateful. Like with Angelina Jolie, you can kind of like understand why, right? It's a lot easier to understand what he sees in her. And I know that both men and women can be with people that from the outside we can see them as repulsive, right? Mm-hmm. But when you're making a movie, you need to help me out. And so I'm watching it, and I don't find Thomas Jane he's a good actor, but his character he's playing here, I don't have
going for it.
Yep. But he's going for it in a way that turns me off. And I think that maybe it would be a lot easier if I could see oh, I get it. He's an asshole and he's abusive, but I can see why she's with him. I never see that here. She tells that story about how they grew up together and he's the one that rescued her and whatever. But it's it just isn't, it's not as powerful when it's just her giving a little bit of exposition in between, the slapping scene and the dick joke scene. It really doesn't hit you. Mm-hmm. I don't know how you fix it, but I just know that that's one of the big problems. I think that we understand why Banderas is obsessed with her, but we don't. It's really hard to get in her mindset and understand why she lets Thomas Jane get the best of her. And maybe that is just that kind of privileged position of we're seeing it as dudes. So of course we're going to understand the guy that's just horny for a really hot woman. And it's a lot harder to understand the hot woman that's being abused by somebody that's
absolutely
in theory, beneath her. But so I'd be curious, female listeners, let us know if you, and it doesn't mean that you like the movie or that you think that the movie is good, but do you, if you watch Original Sin, do you find yourself going, oh yeah, no, I get it. She's in one of those relationships, and that makes the movie maybe work a little better for you. But I'm thinking, even if that works for you, then I would be man, that is not fun. That depiction of that relationship is not fun in the way that it's fun to see Banderas be taken advantage of by Angelina Jolie. And I think that's the real problem, right? I'm all in to just sit back and just have a good time watching Antonio Banderas lose all his money because he got with the wrong mail order bride. It's a completely different vibe seeing Angelina Jolie be
victimized,
abused, and by Thomas Jane. And then you transition to that type of movie, the really dark and nasty movie. But then by the end, she is switching clothes with the priest, and they're conning people in Morocco. It's what the fuck happened?
And not to mention that thing. And again, that obviously can't speak from the female perspective, but when she sucks face right before she shoots him, gotta get my licks in one last time.
To us, a short life, an exciting life.
Don't do this.
No other one.
So, ending on a positive note, I texted Julio before we hopped on here, and we made allusion to it, and I believe we were both being genuine in Contrarian's Corner. The coffee scene at the end is, without question, the best thing in the entire movie.
Yes. The movie doesn't deserve that scene. It's just that good.
Fucking all. Especially at that point, we both said we were both checked out of it, and it's the one scene in the movie where he's Antonio Banderas, she's Angelina Jolie. They bring their master class to it, and it's so good that it made me mad. I was like, fuck this. You're exactly right. This movie doesn't deserve this. She is unbelievable in that scene, and he is too, just the way he's delivering his lines and everything. Look, we've talked about the bad and the worse of this movie. I could honestly recommend this movie with the kind of warnings and that come along with it, just for that 2 to 3 minute sequence at the end.
Do you think the scene works without the rest of the movie before it? Or do you think that it's one of the reasons it works so well is because our expectations are kind of at the bottom by the time we get there? And then suddenly they turn it up. And you're holy shit. So you appreciate it even more. And also, I guess on a more movie-like level, you finally get to see this man take control. And you finally get to see her have real emotions. You really believe her emotions. I think the entire movie, I'm just is she really, does she care or does she not care? I couldn't tell. But in that moment, it's because you're right, the masks are off. Everything is as they're saying. It's a very honest moment between the two of them. So But do you get that feeling if you don't? Because, I was saying, I would just tell people, don't watch the movie, just watch that scene. But then maybe they would watch it and be like, what's the big deal?
Yeah. They'd be like, yeah, it's Antonio Banderas and Angelina Jolie. I was trying to think of an example of, I'm a fatty, so my first thing goes to food. Like you get shitty bread before a steak that's just out of this world, it pops even more. Or because Force Awakens and I'm an adult, so I know Last Jedi was fantastic. Part of the thing that made you realize how lucky we were for those was how fucking awful Rise of Skywalker was.
Right.
But the best example I could think of, because I am me after all, that is an embodiment and kind of a very interesting analogy that I will probably make at some point in the future to professional wrestling. Pro wrestling is original sin. You sit through unbearable offensive shit because one thing happens that pays off and it makes it all worthwhile. The coffee scene with Angelina Jolie and Antonio Banderas in this is Daniel Bryan winning the world title at WrestleMania 30. That's what it is. You put up with years and years of bullshit because something will eventually come.
Is the sex scene at the early in the movie? Is it the first Roxina match?
Yeah, it's like a good treat that you're given. It's just kind of like, here you go, man. We're rewarding you for hanging on. You're right. You're exactly right. If you watch it independent of itself, it will not at all come across as impressive as it is. It's an interesting thing because I think we talked about already, the first hour of this is kind of fun. And if they kind of kept on that trail, you could have had a fun, bad movie. More in line kind of with the Ebert review we read. And then most of the second hour is bad and, like we discussed, offensive. But then in that one scene, not even just the acting, like the way it's shot and the way it's lit and the dialogue in it, it's like everything this could have been came together in that one scene, and it does make it worth watching for that. Yeah, I mean, she's just outstanding and gave this movie way more than it deserved. And Antonio Banderas, no disrespect to him, but I think she achieves on a higher level than he does.
In that scene, I think they're on equal footing. I think that he falters a couple times during the movie. I don't know. I honestly don't know how I feel about his drunk sequences. Like I kind of,
they are kind of like
watching
through your fingers, like, oh
yeah, but I don't know, because kind of like what I was saying in Contreras Corner. There are moments where I'm like, I recognize that type of drunkenness, but it goes on for so long, and he's just playing it so big the entire time that I just don't know. But in that moment, it's all very quiet. It's very, it's just the movie taking itself seriously. And I believe, based on what they both said, they thought they were making a good movie. I don't think that they thought they were making schlock. Like we're saying, oh, well, if it was schlock, then it would be good because we would just be having fun. And I think that they thought they were making an actual, like, seriously good movie. So that's why they were trying the entire time, and good for them. But I think the people behind, I guess this guy, because it's written and directed by him.
Michael Christopher. It's one of 3 movies he directed. He directed 1999's Body Shots, which stars Sean Patrick Flannery, Jerry O'Connell, Amanda Peet, Tara Reid, Ron Livingston. And then he also directed a movie from 2020 called The Night Clerk with Ty Sheridan and Helen Hunt, Anna de Armas, John Leguizamo. Oh, that's right. That's the connection with Angelina Jolie. He wrote and directed Gia.
Oh, that was her breakthrough, right?
Yes, that was the year before. What'd she win for? Girl Interrupted?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, so this was a reunion.
Mm-hmm. It's been too long since I've seen Gia to comment on it as far as the quality of it, but you're exactly right. Everyone involved in this thought they were making a really good movie, and you can see Christopher behind the lens. Like, yes, this is it. This I've done it.
And perhaps later on I will tell you the story of how we came to be here. It is an Interesting tale.
So, Julio, I guess in closing, I want to ask you, how likely are you to check out The Mississippi Mermaid?
I'm not going to say no. I thought you were going to ask me how likely am I to check out the unrated sex scene. And I was going to say very likely.
Oh, yeah.
Because I'm curious. You've sold it to me as something that is completely different from what I watched. So, in the name of science,
this is the episode where we find out Julio's into different things than I am.
It just blows your mind that I'm just like, this is Vanilla City.
They do it different in Peru. I get it, man. I'll see if I can. I'll when I come over to your house next weekend, I'll put it in a black plastic sack. Like when you buy porn at the video store, so you can.
Well, as far as the Truffaut movie, yes, but not because of original sin. I mean, I guess that adds a wrinkle to it. I've seen a couple of his movies and I remember liking them. So this just kind of, I've always meant to watch more of his stuff. So this would add an extra bit of motivation. So the next, whenever it happens, that would be next on the list, I guess. But at the same time, it's not like I was captivated with this story to where I need to see what the French version is.
Give me more.
Are you gonna give it a whirl? Is that your next? Is that your mission now?
It looks like it's on Prime, so I mean, we'll see. All right, nut cutting time. This isn't good. This discussion, we actually got more out of it than I was expecting because we were on the same wavelength about things, but had different reasons why, which is always good. This has got to be a D, which would probably generously would be 2 stars, I think, from myself. What about you, Julio?
1.5. 1.5. That scene, the coffee scene at the end, it really does a lot of heavy lifting. that score. There's that, and the fact that they're trying. I am completely like unmoved by the sex scene, so that doesn't really add or detract to the rating. But I think that the performances are for the most part good. Even like Thomas Jane, like I said, I have issues with his character, but I don't have issues with his commitment to the performance. So that's good. But overall, yeah, bad movie, would not recommend. Not even as a curiosity. Like you said, I would recommend the coffee scene, but then it's like the catch is that you have to watch the rest of the movie before it. So maybe not. I don't know. I think I'm more likely to talk about it than I am to ever tell anybody that they should watch it.
Very fair point. Speaking of movies that no one should ever watch, what are we doing next?
Next, a movie that a lot of people watched and a lot of people liked. We continue paying our live stream debt, this time tackling the Julia Roberts tier. And for that one, we said we would watch Erin Brockovich at 82% on the tomato meter.
And I kid also. I somehow long ago started a bit about hating on Julia Roberts on here, so I got to keep it going. I've seen this movie once. And
same. Was it before or after it won the Oscar?
After, rented it on VHS, and I was 14 or 15. It was just like the hot movie that people on TV were talking about, so I watched it, and it definitely was too young to appreciate anything that it was really going for. But Steven Soderbergh, the man, the myth, the legend, coming back, and Julia Roberts, yeah, this is what got her Oscar. And
Two-Face.
Yeah, Aaron Eckhart is a fucking biker. All right, so that was Original Sin. Hell of a time at the cinema. On deck next is Erin Brockovich, Julia Roberts, leading lady Julia Roberts, makes her long-awaited debut on The Contrarians. But until then, that's going to do it for this episode, Julio.
Let's get out of here.
Welcome to our end credits.
Or as we usually call them, our perennial plugs.
We start off by giving thanks to the Festive Years who provide our opening and closing tracks. They kick us off with Last Stand and take us home with Summer of '99. Be sure to head over to thefestiveyears.com for any and all festive years needs.
Our friend and fellow podcaster Hans Rothgieser is the man behind our logo and all the art you see related to our show. Reach out to him and let him know how much you like that little tomato. His email address is mildemonios@hotmail.com and his website is mildemonios.pe. That's MILDEMONIOS. You can also check out his podcast Nación Combi about Peruvian current affairs and Marginal about economy. Hans, thank you for all your support.
For those interested in the regularly absurd world of professional wrestling, Joe and the boys over at latenightgrin.com have you covered. Tell them the Contrarians sent you.
And we like to close with special thanks to our social media team of Zoe Perez and Coriari. Each of the social media accounts we mentioned in the introduction look as good as they do because of their work.
So that'll do it for this episode of The Contrarians, where we're right and you're wrong, and we will catch you next time.
How much money he makes a year.